Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, where we'll explore adventure, spirituality, and empowerment through the outdoors and beyond. Join me, Carla Amador, as we focus on topics around the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also hear inspiring stories, get educated, and more. Let's get started. Are you ready to take a life-changing journey? Join me for a hike per week or 52 hikes within a year at 52hikechallenge.com. Gain the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also gain access to community, education, resources, and more. Plus, get 10% off on your sign up and first order with code RISE25. That's RISE25. See you on the trails. Hey friends, getting outside and hiking changed my life back in 2014. Now I want to share an even bigger adventure with you all. This October 2026, I will be leading a small group to Nepal to trek the iconic Annapurna circuit. Join me on a powerful journey through the Himalayas that challenges your body, expands your mind, and connects you deeply with nature and each other. This is more than a trip, it's a milestone. And if trekking Nepal has ever been on your bucket list, I would love for you to join us. Spots are limited, and you can learn more on our website at 52hikechallenge.com. Click on the Events and Trips tab, and then Adventure Trips with 52 to learn more. Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast. My name is Carla Amador, and I am your host. Today we have a special guest. I have Mike Leum, who is here to talk all about search and rescue. Mike has over 35 years working for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. He's currently the assistant director. Is that right, Mike?
Correct.
And you have been a search and rescue supervisor. You've been there for over 32 years. We were briefly catching up right before, and you were mentioning that within the last year or this year have had over 700 rescue missions.
So last year in 2025, we had 756 missions in our county, and Los Angeles County Search and Rescue is divided into 8 rescue teams geographically placed throughout the county.
Gotcha. Yeah. In today's podcast, wanted to talk about safety when it comes to being outside. And I figured Mike has been on and we had a talk with him. And after hearing all his experience, thought this was a very valuable episode to help our hikers, new hikers, and people interested in going outdoors to be safe from the get-go. This whole series is all about hiking basics. And Mike, I'm from California. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. So we're going to talk about a lot of these areas that I'm very familiar with, and I know a lot of hikers out there. But now I've moved to New Mexico. And now that I'm here, I actually am always paying attention to what's going on. And one of the things that I notice is there's a specific trail here that gets a lot of people in trouble. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. I feel like every time there's a search and rescue mission, it's mostly at this one trail. So I know there's some hot spots in LA that we can talk about. But really what we want to do here is give people information so that before they go outside, they have some things to consider from Mike, who is experienced and really has saved a lot of lives. He's seen a lot of things. And I think at the end of the day, we just want everyone to be safe and also understand that when you aren't taking care of yourself and you aren't taking these precautions, you're not only putting your life in danger, but you're also putting people like Mike and his team at danger as well, because they have to go out in these circumstances that are challenging for them as well to try to find you. So without further ado, Mike, thank you for being here. Thank you for chatting with me. And I'm really appreciative of you and your time.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Okay, so first question, let's just jump right in. What do you think hikers should do before they go out on a hike?
So I think one of the most important things is just realize what your capabilities are personally and individually. So in other words, if you're not in that great a shape, let's not try and do a 4,000 foot vertical gain hike that you probably aren't going to be able to finish. So I think the first thing is realizing what your current capabilities are physically and then guide your plan around that. Second, one of the biggest problems that we have is people go places where they've never been. They saw something on social media, it looks cool, and they want to go. And so they go out not really prepared for the conditions, the area. We tell people there's a few things you can do to help us. And namely, that is to have a plan and tell someone the plan. If you're going to go hiking in some particular area, let a loved one or somebody know, hey, by the way, and I say we because we don't want you to go hiking alone. That is a huge problem. So you should never go hiking alone. And so tell someone, we are going to go here and we're going to take my car, which is a whatever description of the vehicle, and we're going to park at this parking area. And this is where we're going to go hike to. And it should take us approximately X amount of hours, let's say 4 hours. And then if we're not back 2 hours after that time, that means something's wrong. And please start making phone calls to local authorities reporting us as being overdue. So having a plan, telling someone the plan is key. Then, of course, having awareness of the conditions. It's pretty easy to find out what the weather's going to be, no matter where you are on the planet. So we have people that go out when it's predicted to be a storm in a matter of hours. And you can get hour by hour reports and forecasts right on your phone. So that is also something we run into a lot. People get out there and they're stuck in a storm or out there and it ends up being a 105-degree day. And that's something that you can find out about and you can avoid. If it's going to be a hot day, do it early. We don't usually say do it late because people get stuck by darkness and are also unprepared for the darkness. I always tell people the sooner the better. Get out there, do a sunrise hike. It's gorgeous. It's fantastic. And it's going to be nice and cool. And then, of course, there's what to take with you. And you can find a list of 10 essentials anywhere in the internet. But some of the other things we need to talk about are like cell phones. And that is a whole other conversation because with new technology, if you have an iPhone 14 or higher, you have satellite SOS capability. So I would say at this point, about 25% of our activations are people sending a satellite SOS message, which is fantastic because it goes straight to our sheriff station, gives us your exact coordinates, and it cuts down our search time dramatically in finding you. In the old days, if you had cellular service and you dialed 911, it might go to the highway patrol, who then sends it to the fire department, who then sends it to the sheriff's department. And then sometimes the coordinates we get are for the cell tower and not the phone. A cell tower doesn't do us any good because that could be 10 miles away. So this current technology, sending GPS with a satellite SOS, it's saved dozens of lives here in LA County.
Thank you for all of those tips. And one of the things I wanted to circle back on with what you said was the weather. Of course, that's one of the top things that people should be checking, I would say the night before and then the morning of, because things can change. Are there specific websites or apps that you specifically recommend? Because people going on top of mountains, the weather is going to be a little bit different. Is there one in particular that you recommend they check rather than just the iPhone?
There's a lot of pretty sophisticated weather apps. There's also a lot of live cams
Hmm.
that you can access to look at. Because, for example, you're familiar with Los Angeles, and down in the basin, it could be foggy, overcast, and terrible. But if you look at the weather cam for Mount Wilson, which is where all the TV antennas are, at about 5,000 foot elevation, it could be a bright sunny day. Using multiple resources is really the best way to go. But just doing a very cursory search of the weather forecast, it
Yeah,
would be a huge benefit.
for sure. We like to recommend mountain forecast because you can actually type in what mountain peak you're going to be on, and it has a lot more information just for those of you that don't know, and get familiar with using these different resources. I know when you're first starting out, and especially because I was a new hiker that knew nothing about the outdoors, a lot of this stuff is going to require you to actually put in a little work. But that little work is going to go a long way, and it's going to help you to have successful days outdoors. And that's what we really want. I know we talked about the people going out and not necessarily being equipped or even ready for some of these harder hikes. Is there any other specific mistake that you see even experienced hikers make? Or some sort of common reason why search and rescue gets deployed?
I tell people it's not like baseball with three strikes you're out. It's one strike you're out. So if you make a mistake with your weather forecast, with your equipment that you're wearing, with the hike that you're attempting, that's all it takes is one mistake and you're going to be in a world of hurt. And so one of the things that is available, if you just do a Google search of LA Sheriff Hiking Plan, that'll take you to a form that we created that you could fill out, leave on your dashboard of your car, and gives us all the information that we might need as far as who's going, what you're taking with you, and when you expect to be back, any medical conditions you may have. So there's a lot of important factors that come into play once somebody goes missing. And we want to try and get those answers as soon as possible.
For sure. I'll definitely add a link to that in our show notes for anyone who's interested. We've talked about the 10 essentials and on our website have a list of them. I will also add that to the show notes. But is there anything else that you think people need to think through when it comes to some sort of a checklist or things that you see people forget besides checking the weather or having not having the right gear? Let's talk about water, for example. I've heard from other search and rescue volunteers that they get called out a lot because of dehydration.
We have had many call outs for dehydration lately. It's been a very warm summer or start to the summer. And the other issue that we have that is very unfortunate is we've had pets, people bring their dog. We've had dogs die on the trail. And that's very unfortunate and 100% avoidable. Because even if a person is not going to die of heat exhaustion or heat stroke, the dog is much more sensitive to temperature than humans are. So if you're going to take your dog, you just be smart about it. Don't go out if it's hot. Take enough water for you and your dog. Those are the things that really are frustrating when people make poor decisions that affect either other people, children, or pets.
That's a really valid point, and I'm really glad that you brought that up because people forget, hey, I need to assess how my animal's going to do, especially with a warm summer there. I think that has been something that I recently was reading on. Just don't forget about your animals too. And what's really easy to forget that,
You see your dog starting to pant pretty hard. It's not necessarily because they're tired, it's because they're probably trying to regulate their temperature.
yeah. Thank you for that advice and tip. Back to what you talked about, people not necessarily being ready for a trail. People just showing up to a trail and then just going without even looking at the details. Was it you that was sharing that
Yeah.
last time?
Because there's plenty of hiking apps, and some of them will actually give you a grade, a difficulty grade of a hike, or a technical grade of a hike, like how technical is it?
Yes.
And those can be very helpful. I wouldn't say they're always 100% accurate, but it definitely puts you in the ballpark to know like how hard of a hike you're wanting to do.
Absolutely. If you are new to hiking, don't just get in a car and decide you're going to go drive into the mountains, find a trailhead, and just go on it, because that's what I think could lead people into situations that are troublesome. Lots of reasons why that is not a good idea. So, when you're first starting out, and we kind of drill this in, I would say start under 3 miles, under 500 feet of elevation gain. Look at your local parks. Start on your local trails, because at least if something happens, you're at a state park or you're on a local trail, the chances of running into someone are a lot greater. And if you get into trouble, you can ask someone for help than being in the middle of nowhere in the back country without cell service and then feeling lost. What would you recommend to someone who finds themselves and starts realizing, oh my gosh, I think I'm lost? How do you
Well,
suggest they handle that?
one of our first suggestions is to basically stay put, number one. Because if you're already lost, then getting more lost is not going to help you and it's not going to help us. So even when someone sends the satellite SOS text, hey, I'm lost, don't know where I am, need help, our station responds to them immediately and says, okay, search and rescue's been activated, do not move. And most of the time that works. Sometimes people feel like I'll just walk my way out of this situation, and that almost never works out. So we tell people all the time, just stay where you are, because there's going to be a bunch of people like myself coming to find you. And it's very effective here in Los Angeles because, like you mentioned earlier, we've got hotspots where people go missing. And even lacking their exact location, a lot of times we can make a pretty good idea based on historical data where these people may have ended up. Like I said, our first suggestion is stay where you are because there's going to be search and rescue looking for you. And hopefully, you told someone your plan so that we can talk to someone and get some basic information. Like, who did they go with? Do they have any medical conditions? Are they fit? Have they been at this location before? Or is this their first time? Telling someone your plan, again, is key.
Really important. And bringing those GPS devices, if you don't have a phone like an iPhone, those are some things you can do to be preventative. Even though, as Mike was saying, the iPhone has a greater way to be located.
And there's some
Um,
great hiking apps that don't require you to have cellular service.
yeah.
So we use something called Caltopo, but
Mm.
that's to track our own rescue team movements. Personally, I like Gaia, Gaia. So people should just explore the various different apps that are available for navigation and see what works best for them.
Absolutely. I wanted to circle back on hiking solo. I agree with you 100%. It's always best to go with someone if you can. And there are times where maybe that's not possible. For me, I try to hike with someone, but if I can't, sometimes I feel very confident overall and I have a GPS unit. I always let someone know where I'm going and I always say I'll check back in. Obviously, if someone ends up deciding to go on their own, what is something that you're like, this is a non negotiable, don't do it if, or I know you mainly were like, don't do it, but the
Yeah, I
reality is
mean,
sometimes people are going to go solo.
we realize that there are people that are going to go solo. So we just ask that you prepare as best as possible. So besides a phone, I'm a big fan of pieces of equipment like an InReach, where you have the SOS capability. And also within InReach, you can text your loved ones. I'm in the middle of an overnight mission somewhere, and I'll text my wife from the middle of nowhere and just kind of give her an update. The other thing you could do if you're hiking solo and you have an InReach, you could text your contact person and you could say, hey, you know what? Having a great time. In fact, having such a great time, I'm going to be out here a little longer. My expected finish time now is going to be a little bit later because I'm going to go to this other area or spend some more time. So having satellite communication is very helpful. Plus, like I said, you've got the ability to hit the SOS button. Now that's great, but it's not as effective as like a satellite SOS from an iPhone because an InReach SOS goes to a call center. They have to determine what state it came from. They notify that state. The state needs to figure out what county it came from. They notify that county. And then inside that county, they've got to figure out, okay, what rescue team do we have to activate? So what we find is an InReach SOS emergency notification will get to us in about 40 minutes, I think.
Wow.
That's 40 minutes that this person may or may not have.
Yeah. Thanks for, the additional information because I think that might make someone consider, especially if they have a condition or something, that might make someone think twice.
And I like
Um,
the idea of both. I like the idea of a phone that has satellite capability and a GPS device like an InReach, because guess what? Phone batteries die. I can't tell you how many times we are texting with someone and boom, their phone goes dead.
yeah.
We tell people keep your phone in airplane mode
Yeah.
to save battery. And if there's a couple of you on this hike, there's no need for both of you to have your phones on. Now, I understand you want to take pictures, then that's great. But maybe just use one of those phones for picture taking and save the other one so you save the battery.
That's a great idea. And don't forget to bring an extra battery pack and cords, especially if you're going to do something a little more advanced than a basic hike. Out in California, Mount Baldy, Cucamonga Peak, all of these peaks that are very popular, but also remote and also long. And lots of things can happen throughout the years of running the challenge. We're going on 12 years and we've seen a lot, heard a lot. It's not fun when you see that. So make sure that, like I said, that's part of the preparation. Maybe add that to your checklist. Also, another note on the GPS units or the Garmin, if they run on batteries, don't forget to check them and change them out every maybe 6 months because even that can fail. So being conscientious of that is really important. We had an incident one time, me and a girlfriend were doing a backpacking trip and she got bitten by a dog. And so I was like, oh, wow, if I hit the button, I have a GPS unit that I can alert someone that I'm in trouble. And so I was like, what would they do? Who would they call for the hiker to let their family know? Hey, if you hear or see an SOS message from me, because my system is through Spot, so it'll send like
Mhm.
location and stuff. What should the family member do? This is a conversation I think needs to be had with the person in charge of being the on-call person for the hiker. So who should they call? I was thinking about it. I'm like, if I got an SOS message from my friend or hiker friend, I would actually be thinking, who should I call? The ranger station? You know, I
Well,
wouldn't have thought to call 911, but
the easy answer is call 911. And hopefully the call taker will send that to the appropriate entity.
okay. So you heard it directly from Mike. And I thought, yeah, you know what? This is actually really important to have a plan for your family member who might be like, hey, my person's in trouble, but doesn't even know what to do about it, you know?
And the other thing too is, for example, you asked what to do if you're lost, and we talked about
Mhm.
staying put until you're found, etc. But at the same time, what we have happen is we may have a loved one that thinks that their family member is too delayed. They need to call in the services. And what will happen is we'll be in the process of being out there in the field trying to find this person. Well, the person ended up finding their way back, getting in a car and driving home. And in the meantime, we're out in the middle of nowhere looking for them. So if for some reason you find yourself self-rescued, definitely notify emergency services that, hey, by the way, I'm okay, or have your contact person call 911 back and say, hey, by the way, I just talked to them, they're fine, because that happens probably 10% of the time. And there's usually miscommunication between the family and the missing person. And we've literally had people found at their friend's house or their girlfriend's house, and there just wasn't communication between
Mm,
the family.
good point. Let's talk about turnaround times and when a person should really think about turning around, especially with people who really want to make that summit. They want their summit photo, they want the summit high, but hey, some things are not going well and maybe it's time to turn around. What are some tips or thoughts on that?
Yeah, summit fever is a thing and kind of driven by social media somewhat because like you said, everybody wants that summit photo. And I get that, but at the same time, having awareness about, hey, you know what? Sun's starting to set. And by the way, as the sun sets a lot earlier up in the mountains. So even if sunset is listed at being at 8 p.m., like it is here in Los Angeles about now, it's going to start getting dark in the canyons up there a lot sooner than that. It's not just a matter of when the actual sunset happens. It's realistically up in the mountains, it's going to start getting dark pretty soon. And so that's part of having an awareness of your personal fitness and abilities and whether or not you can realistically complete this hike in the allotted amount of time.
Yeah, so I guess that would go back to the plan. Planning is really key here. So before you go on that hike, sitting down and saying, okay, this hike is supposed to take, like for example, I use All Trails and it does say on there how long approximately they think it will take you. I'll give you
Yes.
a great example. I was on a hike and it's a trail that I go on often, but we always look up information anyhow before we leave, and it says 2 to 3 hours. We did it in under 2 hours because we're kind of going fast. But if I was a new hiker, I would say for sure it could even take up to 3.5 hours if you're starting out and new to the hike. But I like that because then you could be like, okay, it's now 2 o'clock. Let's just say 2 o'clock here, and I'm going to be done. I should be done by 6. That should be plenty of time. Is it going to be dark by then? Do I have the tools I need? Do I have my, even though you should always carry your flashlight and your 10 essentials in your pack, am I feeling confident that if it gets dark that I'm okay to navigate back? All of those considerations, I think that's the part of planning that I think people need to really take seriously. It takes an hour to sit down, to look at the weather, to look at the stats from that hike, look at the elevation profile. I actually just recently had a whole podcast on how to look at elevation, how the 3D format on All Trails allows you to see what that means. You can even pretend you're on the trail and see what it looks like, what the terrain looks like. So there's a lot of things you can do. And I think the most important thing here is
And you can
take some
drill down,
time.
you can drill down into the details pretty deep with technology nowadays.
Yes.
Last month, I was hiking Mount Chuckson, climbing Mount Chuckson in Washington with my son, and literally on an app based on your average speed and based on how much elevation you still have to go, it will tell you your expected arrival. So there's a lot of great technology out there that can assist you.
Absolutely. Yeah. For those that are in the mountains here in New Mexico, we get pretty drastic weather. Okay. And I don't know if it's as common in California to get really drastic weather. I think a lot of times you can do the research and see what's coming. But if you find yourself in the mountains, the weather can change quickly. Is there anything that people should be aware of and then decide, hey, I'm maybe hearing thunder and lightning, I should turn back around? Or is there anything in particular that you're like, hey, there's a kind of a sign that you can see that's foretelling of what's about to come? And is there anything like that you have tips on?
So
Or
I'm guessing in your area you probably have flash floods that occur
there can be for
in the storm.
sure. Yeah, but it's mainly up in the mountains. Thunder and lightning can come in so quickly. We have some monsoons that come in. And obviously, I'm sure you're familiar and heard of Colorado, right? They have a lot of thunder and lightning around noon. So a lot of people get up really early. So a lot of these things are more, if you do your research, you would know that. But a lot of times people don't do the research and then they're now in trouble. So if someone's looking up at the sky, is there something that they're like, oh, I see those dark clouds coming in? Or
Just know that even though it might not be raining where you are, it could be raining 5 miles away up in the mountains, in which case there could be a flash flood heading your way. So if you feel like you are potentially about to get hit with either a storm or the effects of a storm, like a rise in the river, you need to act accordingly and stay more towards high ground. Don't be walking down the bottom of a canyon on your way out, because when that flash flood hits, you're maybe going to get about 15 seconds to get to high ground. And if you don't make it, then that's it.
Oh my gosh, Mike, I just got the chills because let's talk about places like Zion and stuff like that. I don't think we've actually talked a lot about being in canyons and flash floods. When I've been to national parks, I see a lot of signs that say, this is a flash flood area. If rain is coming in, stay away. Is there anything else? I do think it's important to share this with hikers, new hikers, or even experienced hikers.
So that's all part of awareness and preparation and checking weather. But the bottom line is you may get caught out there and the weather could turn. So again, it's just a matter of being smart. The number one factor to keep you safe is shelter. So if you find yourself in the middle of some nasty downpour, hopefully you have brought a simple emergency blanket with you or something that could create some shelter for you temporarily, because a lot of the summer storms tend to come in and then go out. So hopefully you might only be stuck for a little while waiting out the storm. And unless you're familiar with the area, it's not a great idea to just forge ahead in the storm. That would be definitely a turnaround time. I don't know how much snow you have in your area.
We get snow, but we have hikers all around the US, and that's why I was touching on some of these additional things. Snow brings a whole other level of considerations, and I don't know if you want to touch on that because we do have hikers all around the US.
A whole nother hour just talking about snow.
Well,
So,
we don't probably have a whole other hour,
right.
but maybe there's just a couple tips that you want to give people when it comes to traveling in the snow.
I know some people like to stay as light as possible and might be ultralight hikers. And our thing is that if you need crampons, then microspikes aren't going to be the answer. And if microspikes are all you have, then you could end up falling to your death. I can't count the number of bodies I have recovered that have one microspike on and the other boot does not have one, because those are not made to hikes with elevation. Microspikes are great for a frozen parking lot or a sidewalk or a flat trail in town, but they are not meant to go up to 15,000-foot Mount Whitney where you have an icy section of switchbacks. So that's the most important thing. When we're talking about snow, equipment is even more important. Footwear, Gore-Tex pants, jacket, layers, and especially crampons if those conditions may.
Absolutely. And in the past, we've talked a lot about this. Now you're getting into mountaineering, and that's a whole nother subject. It's outside of hiking. You need special training. You need to know how to use an ice axe and not just go online and look up a video, but I'm talking about in the field training. There's a lot more to consider, as Mike said. If you need crampons and you've never used them before, that should be a red flag in there to be like, am I really capable of doing this? People do the mountaineers route on Mount Whitney who have never, ever been trained. And you're just taking the danger level from a 5 to a 12.
But
And
also, risk is relative.
yeah,
So, risk is proportionate to your skills and abilities and your equipment. So, you can minimize risk by having the right equipment and the right training. I'm not one of these people that's in favor of closing trails. Unfortunately, here in Southern California, with areas like Mount Baldy that you mentioned and Cucamonga Peak, where when they get a big storm, people just aren't smart and they go out there unprepared and end up having to be rescued or falling to their death. We've had this year, Mount Baldy had multiple fatalities. And so, unfortunately, the Forest Service knee reaction is just close the trail. And I'm not a fan of that because I know that there are people, especially on this podcast, that have the skills and abilities and equipment to go out in nasty conditions, but be able to do it safely.
Yeah.
You can minimize a lot of risk with proper training and equipment.
Yeah, for sure. And risk management, thinking ahead. Is this really within my capabilities? Do I have the knowledge and wisdom? Do I trust the people I'm going with? There's a lot more to it. So, really, let's call it discernment. Take care of yourself. Go out when you're ready for whatever challenge you're going to be doing, whatever peak. Work your way up to it. I'm about to take a group up to do Annapurna circuit in Nepal. We're starting our training plan here this week, actually, starting in July. We're going to work our way up to 4,000 feet of elevation gain, 12-mile day. And it's going to be a progression. So when you're new, yeah, you may be inspired to go do something really epic or something that looks really cool, but recognize that it's going to take time. Give yourself plenty of time. That's why taking something like the 52 hike challenge is a great goal to help you to get to those bigger goals. Get comfortable out there, practice your skills, take courses, learn from podcasts. We really want to drill in again. We want everyone to be safe. We want less search and rescue missions.
My wife
Actually,
would appreciate that.
that exactly. Have you seen in your 32 plus years of being involved with search and rescue, have you seen the numbers just grow because of how much social media and who knows how else people are getting outdoors more often? How have you seen that progress over the
Well,
years?
unfortunately, it has progressed quite a bit. When I first came on, our county was probably doing 400 to 500 missions a year. And now, like I said, we're in the 750s. And this year doesn't seem to be slowing down. So, and I like the fact that more people are out there in the mountains. That's fantastic because that means they're not at home playing video games. And so I'm a big fan of getting outside, but unfortunately, people don't seem to be educating themselves about
Yeah,
the smart and safe way to do it.
for sure.
And we, in search and rescue, one of the things that we say is we meet people on the worst day of their lives. We just want to make sure it's not their last day.
Hmm. Wow, that's deep. We're going to get ready to close out soon, but is there a search and rescue story or a close call story that really sticks with you that you want to share?
I've had 1,600 missions, so
Wow.
there's a lot to choose from. There's searches that are pretty epic. There are rescues that are pretty epic. One of my personal search missions that will always stick with me was we had to go find an autistic male adult who was also deaf and mute. And this gentleman ran away from his caregiver in a storm in the snow. And so I was paired up with a canine unit and we were hiking down a trail behind Strawberry Peak that you might be familiar with in the
Yeah.
Angeles National Forest. And he could not hear us yelling his name. He could not yell out to us for help. And the search dog stopped in its tracks. And then my partner and I heard a very faint groan. And we think this guy probably saw our lights, our headlights in the darkness in the snow, and wasn't able to yell, but he was able to grunt. And so I left the trail and it was about 500 feet below the trail over a few different ridge lines. I had to pretend like I was a bat and echolocate where this guy was. And I found him is hugging a tree and he had been injured. He had fallen hundreds of feet. His face was all bloody. And then at that point, I called in additional rescue teams, and then we raised him via rope systems up to the trail. And by morning, weather had broke, so we were able to get a helicopter in and get him helicoptered out. That's one of hundreds.
Wow.
And then there are multiple rescue stories. Some of the best ones involving the iPhone crash detection. So you don't have to necessarily dial 911 on your iPhone for help. It has a crash detection feature that if you drive your car off a cliff and you crash, that iPhone will automatically send a crash detection just like the SOS text message, and that will also go directly to our station. That has saved dozens of lives that I've personally been involved with. There's a lot. And then, of course, the ones that will always stick with me are the ones where maybe we weren't able to save that person. The good ones are the good ones, the bad ones are really bad.
Thank you for your service. You guys carry a lot, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for jumping on with me today and sharing your wisdom and your feedback for hikers. Is there anything else that you want to close out with? Any final thoughts?
Other than being outdoors is probably one of the best activities you could possibly do. So I appreciate the fact that everybody listening to this podcast is a firm believer in that. I would encourage you to take someone with you because I'm guessing most of the people listening to this podcast are not people that are going to require a rescue. I got a feeling they're probably pretty squared away. And so, as outdoor enthusiasts, it's our job to educate other people. So take someone that hasn't been on many hikes, take them with you and show them how great it is to be out there and show them how to do it safely. So I would task everybody on this podcast with being their own version of an educator to other people.
With that, please share this with your family and friends, share it on social. I think this is one of those podcasts that could actually save a life if you take it seriously and you heed the advice. And we appreciate you all for listening. And as Mike said, take it a step forward, pay it forward. We're all in this together. We're all helping each other to be safe and to watch out for each other and take care of each other, which is really what we're trying to do here at 52. We want to build a community of education, a supportive community, and we want to keep you hiking for as long as possible. So the more you don't forget these tips, do your planning. When you're out there, discern if you're feeling something feels off, turn around. Half you've consumed half your water, turn around. You might have to help someone sometimes as well. So these tips may not save your life, but it could save someone else's life when you're out there because you can see that someone's in trouble. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate you being on. Appreciate all the work you do, and thank you for your service once again. And it was an honor to have you and speak with you.
Thank you for raising safety awareness.
Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.